Ladies and gentlemen, hello again and welcome back to Don't Worry About the Government. My name is Chris Novembrino. Joining me on the show today and on the Zoom call for those of you supporting on patreon.com/DWATG and watching the video feed is Robert. Hey, Robert.
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
Oh, vibing. And Finbar. Finbar, don't ask me how I'm doing. Robert just asked me that. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad.
I
All things
appreciate you not
considered.
asking me. It's good that you're not doing too bad. To be completely honest, guys, we did not talk about this before we got on the air. There was some whinging about the length of this week's show slate. But allow me to start off the show here by showing you guys something nearly as long. This is a timeline of my life over the last month here because I have not had hot water in my apartment since the weekend of July 4th. Listed here are over 20 different reach outs to two different management companies. To give you guys the long and the short of it, hot water heater dies. I call the front office. I whine and complain and beg and plead and all of the various adjectives and verbs that you could possibly do to try to get some sort of action on this until about the 17th of the month here, when I find out that the property has been sold. And so the old property management company was just not doing any of the work because they were waiting to sell it. So you'd think, oh, a new sheriff's in town, it's a new day, but it's more like that Who song, Meet the New Boss, same as the old boss here. And I am now, coming up on the end of the month here. Rent is going to be due. I have not had hot water for the entirety of the month of July. So I say I'm doing fine. I am actually really drained. The keeping a log and like reading the log and like looking at the log makes me angry. I have to like try to put it out of mind. I have like what I refer to now as anger time every morning, which involves dealing with the nonsense. Because like at the core of this, so my hot water heater dies. It's massively overdrawing power. There might be something wrong with the wiring in here, but like the fix to this is very simple. You contact Lowe's or Home Depot, you order a hot water heater, they bring over the hot water heater, you put it in, we're done. Like grand total, all said and done from start to finish, that should take maximum, let's say 72 hours to be super, super, super generous. But like if you called Home Depot in the morning and they had the hot water heater, you probably could get it there by dinner time and be taking a hot shower at the end of the day if you really wanted to do the job. So like that's always in the back of my mind as I make the umpteenth. Like we're actually over 20 calls now. So that's my life. It's slightly shorter than the slate today. But equally as depressing. So like maybe it's like sort of more of like a condensed, intensified form. Any comments or analysis about the tragedy that is my life before we begin the show?
Well, it is good to have somewhere to put your 3 minutes hate every morning, right?
Yeah. Oh well, I'll tell you too. The cold showers really sort of focus you. Like because I went up when I went up to the office, and this was after I tried to email. I wanted to have a face-to-face meeting with this new manager, right? And I get told by the dude in the front office that I have to email the manager to get an appointment for a face-to-face. So I email this guy back and forth, and like, I'm like, hey, I'm trying to respect your process, but like, I'm now weeks into this, and I really need a hot water heater. So like, when are we having this face-to-face meeting? And the guy's running me around in circles. So I finally go up to the front office, and the guy tells me that I need to have some respect. I just about lose it on him. Like, you mean like the same sort of respect as like you ask people, please email me to have a meeting with me? I mean, like, if I did that to any of y'all, like, oh, you guys you'll have to email me in order to have that sort of thing. It's like big league stuff. Like,
The message there is really clear.
yeah, right. Yeah, no, I'm like, do I need to take like a snapshot out of Webster's of what passive aggression is? Yeah, like and send it to you. Then would you understand passive aggressive behavior? That got meta. All right, let's get into the show here. So, I'm gonna go back to the share screen function just because it's easier for this part. Guys, coronavirus. Things
Yep.
are getting out of pocket in a serious way. So, Robert, you were on the last show, right?
Yeah.
Remember what the numbers were when we did the last show? I checked it, so it's like it's not fair, but I just want to see if it's still top of mind for you.
I remember that it was a little higher than when we locked down in the beginning. I don't remember the number, but I remember you saying it was a bit higher.
Yeah, it was about 54,000 at
Mm.
that point in the United States. And this is up from at the final week of June around 10,000 cases in the United States. Now at the end of the month, the caseload has basically gone up in order of magnitude, like in the actual literal definition of an order of magnitude, as in 10 times
Mm.
where it was at the end of June. We're at 122,000 cases. The 7-day average on that last episode was around 44,000. We're now up to 77,000 as the average number here. We're well past when we did our last lockdown here. The one heartening thing about this is hospitalizations are not, I mean, yes, they're going up, but they're not tracking at the same inclination and everything like that. And that is very much a testimonial to the fact that the vaccines largely work at bare minimum when it comes to mitigating the effects of COVID-19 and taking this from like a potential killer to something at this point. If you got the vaccine, you should feel pretty good that you will recover from this and not need to go to the hospital at any point during that process. The hospitalization rates, especially among vaccinated people, are strikingly low right now. Even with the scare headlines and stuff that are being put out, when you actually drill into the numbers on those, very, very low. That said, I think, of course, this is sort of what we were talking about on the last episode, Sticks and Carrots.
Yeah.
The question remains: how do we get people to get the vaccine? Let's stop there, and then we'll get into the Delta variant part of this, more broadly speaking.
Yeah. I wanted the figures are similar to what we have in Ireland. Again, the figures, they're about 3 times the number of the start of the month in the last 2 weeks. They've doubled and then tripled again. But again, the hospitalizations are going up at a much lower rate here. In terms of getting the vaccines, obviously we've now passed out the States in terms of the numbers per head. We haven't had the same tailing off because we don't have the same volume of anti-vax publicity. I think there's a couple of people in Ireland that are like the leaders of it, and they believe that most of the bad cases are caused by Wi-Fi poisoning. So
For American listeners here, I think a lot of times we go Boris Johnson, British Trump, but like even Johnson's like get the vaccine, even though he's like meandering with umbrellas and having other broader Boris Johnson-y type of issues. He's still like get the vaccine, right?
Yeah. It is. If you look at the stats for the last in time, you can see the tail off in the States is incredible compared to the European Union's ahead. The UK and Israel are obviously probably the top of the charts, but most of Europe is now ahead, and we have, there's half the population is fully vaccinated, maybe another say fifth of the population is one vaccination, and so we're now at the stage now we're moving on to over 12s where we hadn't given them at all. So we're looking by the end of August we'll be probably up around 70-80%, So which is
And that
great,
seems like a very like 80% seems basically impossible right now in the United States, right, Robert?
No, it is.
Yeah,
It
no,
just seems incredible.
it does. I was wondering, like, what are they doing in deep red areas where people won't get vaccinated and they can't staff hospitals with vaccinated people? Like, what is that looking like, and what will that look like? Because, I mean, what happens if the hospital has to close? Does that make people want to go get the vaccine?
I reminded us of the conversations that we had at the start of this last year, which the real issue for rural populations is going to be one, a false sense of security, because they're not as near airports. They don't have as much in and out traffic, which means they're going to have relatively lower levels of virus load in their municipalities and localities. I think, and then that gets factored in with, okay, risk calculation. It's relatively low risk. I could probably go out to Denny's and not have my mask on based on the COVID numbers in my county. This is true in like Texas too. Like Dallas is one thing, but like if I went an hour 30 and like went rural, during that 90-minute drive, I could drive to a part of the state that basically has no COVID-19 numbers right now. And so you always have had that reality. And then that pours onto the cultural mindset, because of the people that they trust, the Tucker Carlsons, the uh, Donald Trumps, and any number of the other large anti-vax voices in this country. Those are like two of the biggest and with the largest platforms. Tucker Carlson, one of the highest rated shows on TV, casting doubt on the vaccines. They are really going to be hard to reach, and the issue has always been they've got very few hospitals there. Everything's going to be fine until the day it's not fine. And when it's not fine, it's going to be not fine very, very fast and necessitate either a state level or federal level response. And what does that look like? And have some of these red states even quietly, I don't expect Greg Abbott to have a public facing meeting about, I don't expect much out of Greg Abbott, but like, has Greg Abbott in private quarters said, hey guys, like, what happens if, Tyler, Texas has a major outbreak? What is our plan to get out medical staff? Texas will probably be okay. Idaho, Kansas, some of these other places, I think there's going to be a much broader question of like, how many extra nurses do you have in these states that have one major city and nothing but outer lying hinterlands in all directions out from the center of the state?
I know. I wonder about, say, the rural areas in terms of the spread there. Is it a case that, like, I don't know if the testing is even reaching out that far, so you get an idea of what the spread is like. So, is there a lot of, what's the word for it? So,
And testing's voluntary, right? Like,
yeah,
so if you don't think you need a mask, why would
mm,
you think you need a test? Yeah, I'm not even trying
mm,
to be funny there. I mean,
yeah,
I'm saying,
absolutely.
yeah, like we can't get these snapshots.
Mm. Yeah,
Well,
you would worry with, I think there was the was sort of a super spreader event in Massachusetts where there was nearly everybody was vaccinated, and a huge number of them got COVID, but none of them got very sick as a result. But if that's the nature of the new variants, then obviously it is going to be a case where the spikes will be very sudden in some of these areas. So you might get a city in a deep red city, that are just could get, not so much wiped out, but you could see the army field hospitals being set up again, trying to cover for it. And you could see probably images a bit like India with them trying to get oxygen in for them.
yeah, one thing I'm glad is that the people who live in those areas who did choose to get the vaccine are protected from other people's decisions a lot more than they were last year at this time.
Absolutely a massive benefit. I am like, look, I want everyone to survive this. I don't enjoy any of these articles about, fathers of five passing away, or these women who have to watch as many of the male relatives in their family, whether it's their husbands or their fathers, die because they stubbornly refuse to go and get the COVID-19 vaccine when the person in question, who's the focus of the story, did go and get it. Like I don't care about their politics. Like these stories like really, really deeply bother me. I mean, I want these people to get the vaccine. And what I worry about now is it is good that the vaccine is available for those who want it, and those who get it have greater protection for it. What I worry about very deeply is these places are very pro business, which is like, bring in business. We're open for business. Come on in. And, companies are now pursuing we want our people to get vaccinated policy to go out and work. And they're going out and starting to operate in a much more sort of business as usual sort of way. And it's possible to me to see a scenario where a vaccinated person comes in and is effectively the typhoid Mary for an entire rural community because that community was like, come on in. We don't worry about COVID-19 here. And again, I just do not have the serves them right bone in me at this point. Like, those people are gonna die. Like, this Delta variant's gonna put them in the hospital in the wrong municipality or whatever. There very well might not be oxygen or respirators for those people. We were talking about last year hospitals and ICUs that only had 3 or 4 ventilators for the entire county. That's a family.
Yeah, and you're starting to see on the right people saying, well, businesses can't require you to be vaccinated to work there. That's not right. Companies shouldn't be able to do that. It's like, no, they can, and you guys have been pushing for corporate autonomy, and they want this, corporations are done. They want this to be over with, and they're going to start getting more forceful about it.
I'll tell you, like, I mean, this is a recurring theme throughout this pandemic, but boy, does this pandemic just continue to clobber intellectual conservatism in the face time and again. This whole right to work thing, right? You remember the right to work, Robert? You like union, right? You're kind of a guy who likes union. Are
Yeah,
you familiar with right to work?
yeah, I've lived in right to work states, and I'm a union member now, and yeah, it's pretty interesting to see them discover the other side of that equation, and they're not happy.
How quickly they waffle on right to work and the employer's right to terminate for any reason at any time when it's their people who are the ones who are going to suffer under the boot of it. Like, I mean, it's weird in a strange way. What woke capitalism has done, and I think this is my new, like, in defense of woke capitalism, is it's made the right discover labor rights, if for no other reason than they are going to lose a lot the more they empower employers under the woke capital model.
Yeah, absolutely. I was wondering about in terms of forcing people into offices. We still have a stay at home if you can policy in the country, so people don't have to go to work now. But is there going to be a thing whereby can people be forced to go into the office and get vaccinated in the States there now? It's a
That's
question I
going to
don't
be
know.
really interesting, right? I mean, I think, like, where the more interesting ground to me is, I think that employers should be legally required to give employees the option to stay remote if they don't want to get the vaccine. I don't want to defend anyone not getting vaccinated, but it seems to be if someone wants to stay remote and stay in their own, of their own reconnaissance or recognizance for whatever reason, because like let's keep it real too. There are vastly illegitimate reasons to not get the vaccine, but there are a handful of halfway decent reasons why you might not want to get the vaccine if you've got a pre-existing medical condition. So there should be a legal carve out for those people to stay remote, right?
One thing of this, just really quick, is that a lot of remote people in rural areas can't work remote because they don't have broadband internet. Go ahead.
No, no, that I was just wondering that again. Like, yes, that there's places that can't, and I guess from terms of whatever their employer liability insurance purposes, they do obviously have some sort of a the requirement to take care of their workers to a certain extent. I'm not sure how weak they are in the States, but over here, if you it would be seen as part of the protecting of the workers, not just the ones that you're forcing to get vaccinated, but also the other ones there around them. So you see people who can't get vaccinated for one reason or another, then they nearly up to them to find some sort of a solution for that.
Yeah. Although you bring up broadband access in rural communities, what would be great is if there was a piece of legislation making its way through Congress that could somehow address this need in some way, shape, or form. Some sort of congressional allocation for such a thing.
Didn't we do something like that after the Depression? It was in infrastructure. We should do that again.
Yeah, FDR was well known for Infrastructure Week. It was one of his big initiatives. All right, real quickly, let's get into the Delta variant here. All right. So you've been hearing a lot about the Delta variant. Uh, what is the Delta variant? It's another strain of the coronavirus. You probably put that one together. But for those of you who are listening, I wanted to or at least those of you watching, I wanted to kind of like visually illustrate the Delta variant's virality in the context of the original virus. So the Delta variant is not that much more fatal than the coronavirus. The big rub with the Delta variant is that it is much more transmissible. It is kind of around the range of Ebola or smallpox. I don't know the difference. Transmissible is just like it's just like airborne, whereas contagious would be actually passing from a person to another person. I think that's the delineation here. It's as contagious as chickenpox, which for those of you who don't know or who've never had chickenpox, one, go and get the vaccine if you're an adult. You do not want to get an adult case of the chickenpox. And two, the chickenpox is pretty contagious, so like you really don't want to get it. So the Delta variant is a good. I mean, it's actually substantially more. So, like, the average number of person infected by the coronavirus is somewhere between 2 and 3. The Delta variant's somewhere between 5 and 10, like kind of settling into 7. So, nearly twice as contagious. One person can spread it. And this is what we were talking about, too, about vaccinated people now being asymptomatic shedders of the disease. In municipalities where people are not vaccinated, with a higher level of contagiousness, there is the real potential for this to run roughshod through a church, let's say. Everyone's doing peace during the liturgy of the Eucharist, and everyone starts shaking hands again because we're finally free of masks and we're happy to be back in church with one another once again. And we're shaking hands and hugging each other, and the coronavirus is moving around freely throughout the world on that. So that's the Delta variant. Gentlemen, any thoughts on the Delta variant? Or if you hadn't heard anything else about the Delta variant that I might have left out there?
But right now, I mean, the decisions on the Delta variant are all made. I have heard that the ramp up and then the ramp down are both really quick, like 8 weeks, 8 weeks, because of how quickly it spreads. It burns itself out in some communities. But I think right now, everyone's just holding their breath, hoping that the Delta variant doesn't mutate to then become more deadly, because then we're in real trouble.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm looking at the charts here too, I can't help but look back to last year's dark winter and think I think the US is cruising for another variation of the dark winter. And I do think it is going to be a very dark winter, and I say this again with no joy, for a lot of conservatives and a lot of religious communities and a lot of places where they like to congregate and they are not taking social distancing or masking or vaccination in a way that is serious, that corresponds with the level of intensity that they like to congregate. I just have a very bad feeling about this. I hate to say it.
Yeah, I think that as well as that, the idea that even vaccinated people who are obviously much more now feel more secure about traveling, that the fact that it's so contagious or whatever, that from people who are vaccinated means that that sort of spread is going to be way more likely as well. So you're talking about people who are now, I know in Europe, people are starting to travel a lot more. So you're now talking about people who are vaccinated bringing essentially the Delta variant around much more than they were before. And though they're not sick, they are spreading it.
How is mask usage over where you're at, Finbar?
It is, we've never had outdoor masking in Ireland, but it's indoor and it's still in place. You, if you're going for a meal, because we've only opened restaurants last week, indoor dining is only opened, and you sign in at the door. We have an app now, so, and we have a certificate of vaccination. So when you go to a restaurant, you show them your digital certificate and you sign in, and you're still wearing a mask till you're in your seat, and then you can take your mask off to eat. So
But
it's
people are doing it. Like there's not
every
like this. Yeah.
yeah. There's a couple of there's an like an anti-COVID group, but they if you ever look them up online, they're usually the butt of other people's jokes. There's so there was an election recently, and they didn't get their deposit back because they got less than 1%. And there's a funny video. I tried to remember the woman's name, one of the anti-vax people, but she was trying to get in without wearing a mask into the count center, and the guards, their police, wouldn't let her in, and she barged into the police and accused them of rape. So that's the kind of
They're,
thing.
they're the butt of other people's jokes here too. It's just that there's 70 million of them.
Well, no, and more importantly, they're enabled here by obviously Donald Trump, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, Louis Gohmert, Tucker Carlson. They have a lot of elite people. The same type of people who like to act like they're so populist, and they're against the blue checks. They have a lot of blue checks, and people who wear suits and people who ride around in limousines, really endorsing them. And that is something like when I watch world news, you just like, yes, obviously there's still liberals and conservatives in other countries, but like you just don't have the anti-mask kind of concerted messaging that we have here. And I think to Finbar's point, I imagine most people who were like looking at the US numbers from with the eyes of a European, you'd go, it's obviously y'all's culture, stupid. Like, really, you guys are debating this? Like it's you. This is you.
Just so, like, in the UK and in Ireland, we would have the same kind of divided parliaments and stuff, but there's no real divide when it comes to coronavirus. If you look in the UK, you'll see Labour Party will agree with the Tory Party, and they'll follow and they'll support them on everything. The same in Ireland. People will have debates about the level of risk and how long things should be kept in place, like our payments and stuff like that. But generally, there's no debate over the basic facts, And in reality, some of the people, the likes of, I think, Gemma O'Doherty is one, and John Waters, they've brought cases to our High Court and Supreme Court, and they've lost every time. And they've, again, like I say, they're a figure of fun, and there's no news network supporting them, And that's we don't have a media that supports that kind of.
That's really important too. It is on one of the major news networks, and a network that has one of the highest rated shows in cable. You have a clearinghouse of people presenting the anti-vax position. And the Fair and Balanced network actually massively overrepresents, in an imbalanced way, the anti-vax position, well beyond obviously what it's actually held in the medical community, but like way more than 50%. And Fox, much like MSNBC tracks almost exclusively Democratic voters. Not every Democratic voter watches MSNBC. You can vote for the Democrats and never watch their crappy network. Lord knows I do it. Ditto with Fox. There are lots of Republican voters who don't watch Fox, but everyone who's watching Fox is a Republican, or one of the 20 people who work for Media Matters, whose job it is to make the clips for us to all look at on Twitter and gawk at.
Well, and I think it's really obvious at this point that the groundwork for this anti-science, reality stuff was laid by the Fox News crowd, and to a lesser extent by CNN and MSNBC, by just ignoring what was being said for 20 years. And it laid the groundwork for this "I don't believe science" stuff, which we're paying a price for now.
I think this is an interesting point. We could go down this wormhole real deep, but like you are making me think of a discrete moment in the past. So if you remember at the beginning of the Obama administration, one of the things that Obama's team wanted to do was kick out Fox News. And what happened when they did that? all of the news networks stood up for Fox News, and they were like, Fox News is a legitimate outlet. Real journalism happens at Fox News. How dare you say that Fox News is not a legitimate news network? And like, to a certain extent, we have been paying the price for that because, yes, if the media had sort of washed their hands of Fox News and let Fox sort of drift into where OAN is right now, OAN is not as big as CNN, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yes, there's always going to be some like weirdo clearinghouse for like fringe conservative thought. You can't ever make that illegal, nor should you. But there was this opportunity for the media to actually kick like ABC, NBC, CBS. All of them could have said, "Bye, Fox. See you later," and instead they were like, "No, no, no. Fox is one of us."
We could do a 5 hour show on the missed opportunities of the Obama administration.
Well, in fairness, I don't lay this one on Obama. But like I know like or missed opportunities that happened during the Obama administration. Absolutely, I lay this one on the media, because they're the ones who came to the defense and basically begged the White House to let Ed Henry and Fox News back into the press conference room so that they could later go after him for the tan suit and also his birth certificate and Benghazi.
And Benghazi again.
Yeah. Did I mention Benghazi? Because like they certainly did it. They for like 3.5 years. All right. Last part here on our COVID segment, and then we will pick up talking about a nation that is suffering from both a coup and the coronavirus. Which nation is it? More in the next segment. That's a tease, baby. That's how we do it in the biz. Next, we have here, though, the worldwide COVID numbers, and I think that this is more relevant to our discussion right now about the Delta variant because vaccine is available in many Western countries, many developed countries, because we got prioritization. However, there are a lot of developing countries in Africa, in South America, in particular, and also in the Asia Pacific, where vaccine distribution has not been where it needs to be. And that's a real problem, as we discussed, because the Delta variant is far, far more contagious than the original version of coronavirus, which has already done quite the number on Brazil and India and some of these countries that have large ghettos, favelas, whatever the term is that is local there, large places where lots of impoverished people are living in very, very shaky and dense housing situations. Not having access to the vaccine is, for some of these places, just an absolute death sentence. It's a question of when does the coronavirus show up, and will you be selected to be on that? Right now, the numbers are close to nearly 500,000 cases again a day worldwide, which is close to near peak numbers. And given what we know about the Delta variant, gentlemen, I think it is very likely that we are cruising to, in about a month, 6 weeks' time, seeing a regular caseload of around a million cases of the Delta variant moving around the world, and particularly in impoverished nations. Brazil, kind of quietly here, has caught up to America in a substantial way. I would suspect that they're undercounting their numbers. So yeah, I don't, there is this real belief here in the United States that COVID's over. I think COVID's back, baby. It's back and worse than ever.
It's going to be a rough winter, and the bigger powers that step in and offer vaccines to these countries stand to gain a lot in the long run in goodwill. And the countries that, for example, patent it and try to make sure they're making billions of dollars off it stand to lose a lot of ground in opinion over the next 30 years.
Yes. That said, those countries that are offering the vaccine need to offer good vaccines, and it seems like the Sinovac vaccine might not be the one that I'd want on my arm. You know what I mean? Like, here's what I will say about the vaccine. I'm not trying to get the second best one.
We didn't have a choice here in Ireland of which vaccine you'd get up until recently, but when it came to younger people, they started to give them the choice, and they're all sort of they're all going for the Pfizer one. Everyone's sort of, so
Interesting. Not the
yeah.
Moderna. They're going with the Pfizer.
We have very little Moderna in Ireland. We just don't. It's not available. So we have a good bit of AstraZeneca, a little, not a huge amount of the Janssen, but younger people were being offered the Janssen one, but no, they don't. Everyone wants the Pfizer.
That's legit. I mean, like, if I had the Moderna, but the Pfizer would be my second choice. I don't know. Not, I'm a bit of a vaccine connoisseur these days, gentlemen. I'm kind of into vaccine.
It started mixing your vaccines, then you'd be like, you can mix a bit of Janssen in afterwards with your Moderna.
Yeah. It's a chase. It's the chaser theory of medicine. All right. So here we're gonna pick up in the next segment here, talking about a nation besieged with political turmoil. I said political. I don't know what I was hearing. Political turmoil and also the coronavirus. Which nation is it? You'll have to find out in the next segment.